right, everybody. We are here doing something a little bit different this week. Here on All In a Nintendo podcast, the weekly Nintendo variety show, where each and every week no shells left unturned and no point is left unearned. Look, Eric, it happens sometimes. We can't be live on youtube.com/slash all in podcast every single week. Sometimes life happens. Sometimes you got to take a week off. It just happens. All right.
It does. There are things outside of our control that, by definition, we can't control. So it's like, occasionally you got to give us, but we still made a show for you guys. We love you guys that much. We still made a show for you. You still get your weekly dose of Eric and Seth. So you're welcome.
Yeah.
And we will be right back here live next week. Hopefully.
Yeah. And I had this thought where I was like, in past weeks when something has come up and we haven't been able to do the live broadcast, where we just pre-record the audio just like we used to in the old days before we started doing live shows. And I was like, well, why couldn't we just pre-record it on video and just do it like a YouTube premiere? So that's what's happening this week.
We have friends who spend their Friday evenings with us, and we didn't want to disappoint them.
Yeah. So we may not be live, but we're still here. We're still here, youtube.com/slash all in podcast. So shout outs to everybody who's either watching the premiere on YouTube right now or who is catching the VOD later on. We appreciate you all. But you know who else we appreciate, Eric?
Oh, we very, very much appreciate these people, Seth. These are the cream of the crop, the top of the mountain. We are talking about the patrons, right?
Yes, of course we are.
Okay, good.
Of course. We're talking about the lovely people, our friends and supporters at patreon.com/slash all in podcast. Thank you all so much to everybody who supports us over there. And of course, every week at the beginning of our show, we like to show our thanks by shouting out our Golden Banana and Triforce tier patrons, starting with our Golden Banana bunch: Rob Yapel, Third Strongest Mole, Sean Shano Baggins Ashton, Tim A, aka Neoprime33, aka Nintendo Dad number 4, Matt Shy Guy City Murray, Drew Agnew, Phelan Ward, Bill Tucker, Marcus O'Neill, Liam D, Solo Something, and Bowza. So thank you very much to all of our Golden Banana tier patrons. But moving into our Triforce tier, we've got to thank Josh Vaughn, the godfather of Tingle Love Tuesday, John Datfast Cummins of the Retrologic podcast, as well as On Topic Retro, the Globetrotting, Jet Setting, Nintendo Hub, and Sparky of the Nintendo Hub right here on YouTube, Adam Caparello of the Octorock 1982 YouTube channel and the Retro Groove podcast, Shy Guy, the other half of our Shy Guy mod squad, Danielina Hosa, Dan and Luma, and the legend himself.
The man who, even though I've got a frog in my throat this week, I had to make sure to come on to say, Uncle Randy.
Uncle Randy, a gravelly, dark and gritty Uncle Randy this week.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have noticed already that I have a little bit more baritone in my voice. The aforementioned life happens that we can't control, but I am pushing through it. I got some all-in mug coffee to get me going, so we are doing this.
It's magical.
Frogs and throats be damned. It is.
Yeah.
It is literally magical. If you drink any fluid from an all-in cup, positive magical benefits will come your way. Actual positive benefits may not actually come your way.
Yeah.
But these are still available at bit.ly/all-in-merch. Go ahead and check out all of our accoutrement there. We've got stickers and hoodies and shirts and, of course, the mug, and looking into more stuff.
That's right. We are always looking into ways we can expand the merch and stuff. So we appreciate that if you want to throw a few bones our way. And there's also, we normally, this is where we would shout out 5-star reviews. We don't have any 5-star reviews this week, but that's a very free way. You can pop over to Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Audible, leave us a 5-star review, and you can even write some words in there that I will shout out at this point of the show when we have them. And then on Spotify, you can even drop us a 5-star rating over there anonymously, and we appreciate that because it helps us climb the ranks, beat out all those other stinking Nintendo podcasts out there. We want to be, when you search Nintendo podcast on the internet, we want All In to be right there at the top, man.
We're number one in your hearts. We also just need to be number one in SEO. So
that's right. That's right. And speaking of beating out other Nintendo podcasts, Eric. Uh,
Yes, we did. There was an update last week, but we didn't really feel like mentioning it last
yeah,
week. But I guess we probably should because
just for
there's a much bigger
posterity.
update this week. But yes, for those of you who have been following us for a little while, for more than a couple weeks, you will know that this year we are in a heated battle against our rivals to the death, the Nintendo pals, in a draft, so to speak. So very quickly, Seth, can you give people the rundown on what exactly that is?
Yeah. So we're in a fantasy critic draft where earlier this year in January, the Nintendo pals, Eric and myself, sat down and we each drafted games for Fantasy Critic, which is essentially it's just like fantasy football, except we're racking up points depending on the open critic scores that these games receive when they release. And so we've been kind of tracking this throughout the year. We didn't want this to be something that was just one and done. We wanted to give you guys updates throughout the course of the year. You guys can follow it as well in our Discord. There's a pinned tweet and a dedicated All In versus Nintendo Pals channel where you can follow this along a lot more directly. But we do like to pop in here and give updates when applicable. And there are stakes that are to be determined that were submitted by the community that we're going to have a follow-up draft. Essentially, we drafted the first half of the year, and then in June or July, kind of after the summer announcements, we're going to have a follow-up draft for the rest of the year and announce at that time what the punishment for the losers will be.
Yes, the punishments are going to be voted on by both communities, and I am expecting some creative stuff that you guys are going to inflict on the Nintendo pals when they inevitably lose.
So, but we do have a couple of updates here. We have had a few games that were drafted by both parties
Yes.
that have since released.
Yes,
So-
indeed. So the update that we didn't think was worth mentioning last week was, of course, the release of Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon, which was, of course, drafted by the Nintendo pals, which they got a respectable 10 points for, to tack onto their 15 points from Octopath Traveler 2. This week, another game they drafted also came out, the one actually sitting behind me on my TV that I'm pretty excited to play. The new Storyteller indie game also dropped, and they have they got a couple points for it. Fair enough. They got 5 points. They got a total of 30. Big whoop-de-doo.
Yeah. And you know what? I am surprised that I thought that Bayonetta would be more in the 70s and that Storyteller would be more in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
the way the points are tallied is every point above 70, and OpenCritic is just like Metacritic. It's a review aggregate website. And so if the average review score of a game is 75, if that is the average aggregate review score, then you get 5 points. You get 1 point above 70 for the fantasy draft, and that's exactly what happened with Storyteller. It has currently an aggregate review score of 75, therefore they got 5 points. Now, if you can get an incredibly well-reviewed game above 90, a reviewed game above 90 aggregate points, then you get 2 points for each point above 90. So 20 points specifically between 70 and 90, and then another potential 20 points if somehow a game releases that receives a perfect 100 aggregate review score across the board.
Which would be wild. So
that would be the biggest story of the year.
Yeah. So we definitely, and there is a lot of stuff kind of in flux. Again, you guys can follow along, and if you're patrons, you actually have on your Patreon feed the live draft, which we'll do again. We'll record another Patreon exclusive live draft, and that was super fun. So you can literally hear it happening in real time. But this week we had a game release as well. Kind of our dark horse pick was Atelier Ryza 3: Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key. Which currently has got an 82 as we're recording this. Now, worth noting, points are not added to our total until release day because there will be further reviews dropping on release day. So it's currently at an 82. It could go up or down by the time you're listening to this. But currently, we're at 82 points. And if that ends up sticking by Friday, then our total fantasy points are going to wind up being 34, and they will have 30. So it's pretty close.
Yeah. Close. So, but of course, your boys, the heroes of this story, are currently in the lead, and that's not going to change. That's not going to change. We're going to win. We're going to keep it interesting just for the sake of dramatic effect, but we all know who's coming out on the other side.
Yeah.
Pals.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Tales of Symphonia, we'd just be demolishing them right now.
That's true.
Honestly.
Tales of Symphonia is actually my fault. That's my fault.
Well,
Atelier Rizza was Seth's pick, and I really thought that Tales of Symphonia Remastered was going to perform much better. Yeah.
Everybody did. You can't be blamed for that.
But that's the thing. That's the risk you take with the fantasy draft. If we had known that Metroid Prime Remastered was coming out this year, we would have absolutely
and we would be cleaning up. That would have been a great foil to their Tears of the Kingdom pick that they got.
The pals would already have quit. Yeah. They would have already conceded victory to us. So that's what makes the game interesting.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun, and we're having fun doing it. So that's the update. And by the way, Atelier Ryza, that is not even a me pick. Like, I put it in there. The only reason I know about it, shout outs to Ryan Turford from Carpool Gaming, one of my fellow Carpool Gaming teammates, who is like he plays every like JRPG under the sun. He's of course a huge fan of the series and stuff. So he turned me on to this as a good sort of dark horse fantasy critic pick. And I just knew about it just from proximity to Ryan Turford, the man on the moose. So shout outs to Ryan for that.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. But again, if you want to follow that's going on all year long. We will update you periodically throughout the rest of 2023. But again, look forward to that second draft and the announcement of the punishments around the middle of the year.
Yeah. So that's been your fantasy critic update. With all of that out of the way, sir, what's been going on in your world this week?
Well, the pals drafted Bayonetta, and even though we were really hoping that game completely crashed and burned for our sake, we still had to pick it up because we are still dedicated Nintendo content creators, and we are doing a review of that next week on the show for all of you guys. And that is what I have been doing this entire week, is playing through the entirety of Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. It is a very different type of game, and we are going to have a lot of thoughts about that next week. I really don't even want to spoil too much. I do think there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to have to say that are going to surprise people, and I really try not to sound too clickbaity, but I also don't want to give too much away. But I'll just tune in to the review next week. We are going to have plenty to say about this game. But if you're listening, Open Critic, 0 out of 10.
Yeah, it's
0 out of 10, Open Critic.
It's going to be an interesting review. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that next week.
I am too. But I have to apologize to all of our amazing listeners. I unwillingly, accidentally said a fib last week.
Okay.
So I was under the impression that I had unlocked every character in Streets of Rage 4. I thought there were only 12 unlockable characters. I found myself on YouTube, like you do, falling down a rabbit hole of YouTube clips. And I can't even remember specifically what I was looking for, but I was looking at something for Streets of Rage 4. And it goes to the streamer, it goes to the character select screen, and there's a character icon there that I didn't have on my game. And I'm like, nani? So I check it out, and I stop the video, and sure enough, it's a character I actually didn't think was in the game. It's kind of the classic overpowered joke character, Rue from Streets of Rage 3. You can actually unlock Streets of Rage 3 Rue. You have to use an old-timey style video game code to unlock them initially. Then you have to, I do too, and then you have to actually complete a stage with Rue to permanently unlock the character. But that was so much fun. One of the things I love so much about Streets of Rage 4 is the fact that they marry this gorgeous hand-drawn art style with a lot of very faithfully, classically recreated pixel art characters. And just running around with an incredibly faithfully pixel art character from the Mega Drive Genesis years in this gorgeous, against a backdrop of gorgeous hand-drawn art, there's just something that on a primal level makes me happy. And also the fact that I have another character who I get to unlock a whole brand new moveset for, because something that doesn't often get mentioned when it comes to the DLC for Streets of Rage 4, of which there's been a significant amount, is the fact that when they released the Mr. X's Nightmare Survival Mode update, something they did is they gave every character in the game unlockable alternate attacks that you can customize when you play with them. So a lot of their forward attack, a lot of their special attacks, the characters in the game have up to 5 different attacks that you can switch out as part of their repertoire. So the characters can wind up playing vastly different, and it gives you a ton of different options with the individual characters. And just going through the survival mode and unlocking them is a ton of fun. And just knowing that I have the ability to do that now with arguably the most crazy fun character in the game just means I'm probably going to put even more hours into that game. Streets of Rage 4 at this point is the game that just makes me feel like Scarface. You know, every time I think I'm out, they keep pulling me back in.
Right.
And the frog in my throat really helped me sell that line this week. So, but yeah, I love that. I've also been continuing to play a lot of Puro 2, but I also jumped into Kirby's Dream Land 2. I really wanted to replay through that. And, you know, looking at Kirby's Dream Land and Kirby's Dream Land 2 on the Game Boy, it is astounding to me that they're both on the same platform, because graphically, they look the same, but there's just so much more content in Kirby's Dream Land 2. The inclusion of the copy abilities, the introduction of the 3 now iconic animal buddies in Rick, Kine, and Koo.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's so many more stages as well, and hidden unlockable star drops and all that stuff. You know, just give us more Kirby games. Give us more Kirby games. We might be mentioning a few Kirby games later on in the episode. So maybe stay tuned if you're listening to the full podcast version of the show. But yeah, Bayonetta has been mostly my week, and I know it's also been mostly your week, buddy.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just gearing up for the review. I haven't finished it yet. I'm going to be doing that this weekend. And yeah, it's going to be a really interesting review. There's a lot to talk about with that game. So I'm looking forward to sort of digging into it. But the big thing that I wanted to flag is Remnant from the Ashes.
Yeah.
So this game.
Do I need to get this game, Seth? Is that what needs to happen?
Well, here's the thing. The thing is I don't know. And I really like it. And we, full disclaimer, got a code from the publisher. So big thanks to the publisher. I think it's THQ Nordic, actually, that publishes
it. It is THQ Nordic. Yeah. I thought was funny, because you're not always the most complimentary of THQ Nordic. And I thought it was funny that I saw that you were really liking this game from them. I'm like, oh, nice. That's actually liking a THQ Nordic game.
I do really like it. It's, and this is a Switch port of a game that released on PS4 and Xbox One back in like 2018, 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah. So and as a matter of fact, I think the sequel comes out this summer on modern consoles. So we're only just now getting the first one on Switch, but I gotta say, like, it's kind of like a goofy, like B grade kind of shooter, but there's something charming about it. Like, it's this, it's a third person shooter, but it's kind of this mix of like post-apocalypse. Like if you took Fallout and married it with like a fantasy kind of game, like Fallout meets Darksiders kind of vibe, which is appropriate because it's actually made by the same developers that made Darksiders 3.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, THQ Nordic. I mean, Darksiders. Yeah.
It sort of has that vibe. And the entire world has been taken over by this like demon hell spawn called the Root, which are these like
Like you
tree
do.
demons, yeah, something like that. And your character ends up getting shipwrecked and has to like fight for survival. They wind up in this place called Ward 13, which is this kind of like haven of survivors, and the entire
It's like the
game.
Hunger Games.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny you bring up the Hunger Games. I've actually been watching the Hunger Games with my wife this past week,
Oh,
for the
nice.
first time. I'd never seen them before.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so we've actually been watching like every night this week. We've been watching a Hunger Games movie because I guess they're leaving Netflix soon. So, anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Any
Um,
user.
we're so you go to this place Ward 13, which is this like haven, this like bunker for survivors, and you go through this like tutorial, but it's not long before they send you out into the open kind of post-apocalypse wasteland to go out and just sort of like go through these procedurally generated dungeons, get loot. It's kind of in your Diablo, Borderlands.
Procedurally generated, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So you go into dungeons and it's different each time with different bosses and everything else. And it's a really interesting, like it feels good. The Switch port is great. It runs really well on Switch. I had a hard time, unfortunately, tracking down the resolution on Switch. I don't know the resolution the game is running at. It looks really good to me.
Hmm.
Um, but it like the frame rate is rock solid.
It's not 4K. I'll tell you that.
No,
It's
no,
not
no.
4K.
Can confirm. Not 4K. In any case, whatever resolution it's at, I think it looks really good for what it is. Again, the game's old, so you know, it looks like an older game. But the important thing is that like I haven't noticed any frame rate dips like at all.
Nice.
Like it's rock solid. I released a video on the YouTube channel if you want to see the game in motion for it, and that video actually did really well. So thanks to everybody who watched that. And there's a lot of Remnant fans out there apparently. And this game has got like a little bit of a cult following, and I can see why. By the end of the video, if you watch that video, I had a hard time turning the video off. Like I had a hard time stopping and playing it, and I have found myself going back to it just like at 30 minutes here, an hour there, and like to the point where this week alone I've played like a good 6-7 hours of Remnant, you know?
Nice.
And like it's
We
it's
have to
not
put up a. We have to get a rating party together.
well, the thing is, you can do 3-player co-op. You can, and there's like three very like kind of, you can tell they have designed these three classes to play together. And you can do local co-op, you can do online co-op, and I haven't been able to test out the online co-op, but like the playing in single player so far has been a ton of fun. Like again, it's not going to be game of the year, it's not going to be, you know, a life-changing experience, but it's a really fun little looter shooter, and I'm really kind of charmed by it, and I was surprised.
Nice.
Yeah,
Because this is
cool.
one that would absolutely have flown under many, many people's radar.
Including mine. Like
Yeah.
absolutely including mine. I remember my cousin played it when it first came out because he's a big Dark Souls fan, and this game does have some Souls-like influence to it, where
Okay.
you've got your little checkpoints that, just like in a Souls game, whenever you rest at a checkpoint, you get your health back and you get your
Hmm.
consumable health thing back. Your like Dark Souls has an Estus flask. This has, I think they're called Dragon Stones or something like that. Dragon Hearts maybe. Anyway,
Okay.
it's your health consumable that refreshes, your ammo refreshes, but of course all the enemies respawn. So that's very Dark Soulsian, if I can say that.
Dark,
So
Dark Soulsian.
so it has a little bit of that like kind of Souls design influence. It's also got that kind of world design influence from Souls, where you're unlocking like shortcuts and stuff to get yourself to dungeons and boss fights more quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really, you pass through like a fog wall just like you do in Dark Souls to trigger a boss fight. Yeah, it's really cool. Like I just kind of I found myself just getting kind of hooked on it, and
Nice.
yeah, shout outs to Remnant. It's good. And if anybody out there in the community, anybody listening wants to play co-op, hit me up. Like I would be happy to play co-op with some folks. So,
Yeah, we might set up a rating party this weekend or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Be on the lookout for that.
hey, and it's $30. So like I feel like it's a pretty good price for what it is. So, yeah. Remnant from the Ashes. Thanks to THQ Nordic for the code. And pretty dang good. I like it.
Pretty dang good. I like it.
I like it. But, sir, got some news to talk about this week. What do you say?
We do have some news to talk about. Obviously we've got some big conferences going on. We've got some stuff that we weren't expecting to happen. But such is life. Again, things are out of our control. All we can do is talk about it. So let's talk about it.
Hey, listen!
That's right. So the first thing I want to hit here is in kind of conjunction with PAX and GDC, which are both happening right now. So PAX East happening, and then Game Developers Conference happening, kind of all at the same time. The folks at 61 Indie, who it's kind of cool to see because Kyle Stevenson, who is also part of the PlayStation Trophy Room, it's kind of like a cool, like, proud moment because over at Carpool we work with those guys a lot and we kind of know them and are friends with them, and so it's kind of neat to see Kyle kind of in these presentations. And they put on the 6-1 Indie Mini Indie Showcase, the second annual Mini Indie Showcase. And effectively what this was, it's basically, I think it was 33 games in all. So a lot of games. And it's basically just a collection of showcasing these really cool indie games. And many of them were not confirmed for Nintendo Switch. I had to do a lot of kind of like legwork to independently confirm Nintendo Switch versions of some of them. For the vast majority of it, it was just like wishlist on Steam, But there were some standouts. There were enough standouts for games that are coming on Switch, games that I have been able to confirm are coming to Switch, that are worth shouting out here.
Yeah, so last week I turned you on to the Mix, the Media Indie Showcase show, and we wound up seeing a couple really cool games from that this week. It was your turn to turn me on to a show. You actually gave me a little bit of homework. You're like, hey, check these games out. So I did, and I've got to say, a lot of these are right up our alley, including this first one. None of these five that you sent me were announced necessarily at the show, but these are definitely games that are on our radar now. And you want to talk about up our alley. Fall of Porcupine is definitely up our alley.
This looks so much like Night in the Woods. Like, it's like very, very Night in the Woods inspired. You're playing as this like pigeon doctor.
I guess, yeah.
Like a pigeon, like surgeon or something. And it definitely has, it was funny because in the showcase, they had a segment that they were like, okay, so this segment is dedicated to those indie games that are going to make us bawl our eyes out, that kind of thing. And Fall of Porcupine was in there. It's this kind of like very painterly art style, kind of like a 2D. You're walking around a town. There's a bunch of other animal characters, like very Night in the Woods. Like Night in the Woods is the first thing I thought of. That is coming to Switch. That was one of the few games that got a Switch logo in the presentation, and it's coming this fall. On Steam, there is a prologue chapter actually already available. So pretty cool. Looks good.
Yeah. Looks super interesting. Again, I like the backdrop of having this weird anthropomorphic animal-run hospital, but it looks like the gameplay itself is going to be incredibly varied. They showed off, a lot of mini. I don't know if they're going to be mini games, but it appeared that way from the trailer. You were like throwing snowballs, and there were these interesting platforming sections. Again, like a giant beanstalk was there, and
it's very Night in the Woods.
Very Night in the Woods. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Was that one of the ones that was confirmed for the Nintendo Switch? So we are getting that one. So that's nodding his head yes. So
that was actually one of the. There's only 2 or 3 where there was a Switch logo like in the trailer during the Mini Indie Showcase, and that was one of them. One of the ones that didn't have a Switch logo in the showcase, but I was able to independently confirm, was Tiny Thor.
Yeah,
which
this one looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a sucker for 16 and 32-bit era style action platformers, and this is exactly that. With the caveat of, they can't really use the MCU. The Marvel version of Thor, but Thor is still a Norse god and therefore well within public domain. So they still took this idea of Mjolnir and being able to throw Mjolnir and return it back to you. And it looks like some really interesting combat and puzzle-centric ways.
Yeah, it's you kind of, I don't know if you're gonna like control Mjolnir independently. It sort of looks like you do when you throw it out. I don't know. But in
It
any
looks like
case,
there may be a little bit of like twin stick shooter
right,
control to it. Maybe. I
right.
hope if they do something like that, maybe you can do it to where you can control it either with the right stick, or if you want to have like more of a like an 8-directional control, more of
Mhm.
a like hard fast. You can also use the D-pad to do it. So I
Yeah,
just that game is going to live or die based on the ease of control of that hammer, considering it's basically, at least if the trailer is to be believed, which I imagine it is, it's going to be integrated into basically everything you do in the
yeah,
game. So the ease of control of that is going to make or break this title. But it looks really cool. I
it
dig
does.
the super cartoony aesthetic. The pixel art looks really robust and really vibrant. I always am attracted to games like that. So this is another one that is firmly on my radar. And I'm
And
glad we were able to, well, you were able to independently confirm that we are getting it for the Nintendo
yeah,
Switch. If I can't get a decent MCU Thor game, I'll take this.
at least I'll take this tiny Thor, this sort of Asterix looking tiny
He does kind
Thor.
of look like Asterix, doesn't he? From
Yeah.
Asterix and Obelisk, yeah. He does kind of
Yeah.
look like Asterix.
Yeah, so I can appreciate that. That is coming to Switch. We don't have a release date. There are a lot of these that we didn't have release dates on, unfortunately, which is always kind of an annoyance for me. But one we did get a release date on, and I'm really unsure how this is going to work because there's this game Raven's Watch,
Hmm.
which looks pretty interesting. This kind of Diablo style.
It's like
Um,
Diablo meets Hades.
yeah, where you're playing as like folklore characters. You're playing as like I think like you can play as like Aladdin and the Pied Piper and stuff.
I think this, I don't think we talked about it last week, but I think this was actually shown off at the media in the exchange
Yeah.
last week as well. But yeah, that's essentially what it is it's a dungeon crawler roguelike style game, very dark.
Hmm.
Uh, but you know, the art style is still very kind of cartoonish, somewhat cell shaded,
Right.
but you know, still kind of dark. But yeah, you play as a lot of very noticeable folk characters, not Thor in this game, but you can play as Beowulf.
True.
Apparently, you were right. You can play as Aladdin, the Snow Queen, from Hans Christian Andersen's, the obviously the inspiration for the
Frozen.
most overplayed song in the history of ever. The movie's great, by the way. But let me see, Beowulf, Aladdin. There's a couple other
I think Little Red
notable
Riding Hood is one of them.
the Pied
Scarlet.
Piper.
Yeah.
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 Pied Piper's in there. So there's some interesting, notable folk characters. The onus behind it is the Ravens watch. These Ravens look for these classic heroes, these classic characters of yore, renowned for their strength and cunning or whatever. And they have, I guess, like the Crow essentially brought them back to help save the world from these dark forces. So that's the thing. That's how
Sure.
they explain all of these characters teaming up together, is this murder of ravens, you
Yeah,
know,
sure.
setting out to unmurder people.
Sure, I'll take it. But what's interesting about this is it's launching in early access
Hmm.
very soon, April 6th. Now, I
Yep.
assume that it will not be in the early access state on Switch. I could be wrong about that. I assume it isn't. And I did check like the upcoming releases, and Raven's Watch is not in the upcoming releases on the eShop. So what I assume is happening here is it's going to be in early access on like PC, maybe even Xbox, which sometimes gets this. And then later this year, they'll launch it properly on Switch, and that's when we'll get it. But early access, at least, is on April 6th for Raven's
Yeah.
Watch, and it is coming to Switch. We did get that logo in that trailer.
And I know it's a
Um,
murder of crows, but I mean ravens. It really should be a
I
murder of
mean,
ravens. It
same
really
thing.
should. It's just,
Crow, Raven, tomato, tomato.
yeah,
The next
nevermore.
one, yeah, exactly. The next one here, Read Only Memories Neurodiver, which is a sequel. This is actually from a publisher that we're pretty familiar with, Chorus
Yep.
Worldwide,
Oh yes.
who released I didn't play the first one, but I guess there's another Read Only Memories game on Switch, and this one is coming this summer to Nintendo
Hmm.
Switch. I gotta be honest, it looks really good. It's very much in that visual novel, coffee talk sort of vibe. Looks cool.
I watched the trailer about 3 times. I still have no clue what I saw. It is
Yeah.
It is very trippy. It is incredibly trippy. It looks to be like you said, a visual novel with some point and click style adventure elements to it,
Right.
and like it's just some like a weird palette, and like just weird is really the word that just keeps coming to mind because just watch the trailer. It's so hard to explain aside from what we've already said, but it does look intriguing. And Course Worldwide basically has carte blanche with us. You tell us you're making a game at this point, and we're going to play it.
Yeah.
That publisher, especially working with Toge, they've just been doing uniformly great work across the board. So this will be one to keep an eye on regardless. And it makes me want to go back and play the other read-only memories, which that may have to happen soon.
Yeah, me too. It makes me want to play that first one and see what the deal is. It's fully voice acted, which was surprising to me. You know, considering the scale of these games, to have pixel art of that quality and to have full voice acting of that quality is impressive.
Yeah,
So,
I just really want to see what's up with like the Cthulhu hand.
yeah. I've got no idea what the heck is happening in the game, but I think it looks interesting.
All our listeners are like, "What?"
Yeah, you're just gonna have to.
That was our reaction to watching the trailer. Yeah,
yeah.
It's just a big what.
Yeah, so Read Only Memories Neurodiver coming this summer to Nintendo Switch, but there one more thing at the end, and this game was not officially, like, none of the games that were shown here were, like, revealed for the first time here, but this is the first time I'd ever heard of Slope Crashers.
I didn't realize it was the OMT.
Yeah, that was kind of their, like, one more thing at the very end. Slope Crashers, which I did independently confirm, is coming to Switch later this year. PC and Switch are actually the only confirmed platforms right now.
Interesting.
And it makes sense because it has a lot of Nintendo DNA in it, the developer by their own admission. And there's a great interview. One of the really cool things that the 6-1 Indie team did is immediately after the show on their YouTube channel, they put live probably 7 or 8 developer interviews that were each 20, 30, 40 minutes in length. And one of them was with the developer of Slope Crashers, who I believe is a solo developer. And
that's nuts considering the game.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe he's had some help with like art and stuff, but I think he's like primarily the one behind everything. And
that's nuts.
So this is a Snowboard Kids like, essentially. He's making a game that it's very kind of like physics based, and it's basically if you took Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and met it with Snowboard Kids with the sort of like visual guise of like goofy animals, and you got Slope Crashers.
You know, honestly, if Snowboard Kids hadn't been thrown around specifically, I would have much more compared this game to SSX. And honestly, still in motion, it still reminds me more of SSX. But regardless, like how often do I say, give me all the arcade sports games? Yes, please.
Yeah.
I will say, just based on the trailer, like I wasn't sold as a day one. It does look really interesting, but there's something that makes me feel like the game might potentially have a lack of polish come release day. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me being worried. But I'm hoping. I hope all these games are good when they come out. And of course, there's so many classics from the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo, and the Nintendo 64. We've been waiting on a new Snowboard Kids forever. So if this is what the game feels like, I will be more than happy to pick it up and play it with you, buddy. I hope it's got online. We did confirm 4-player split screen multiplayer.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if they mentioned online multiplayer on that.
I believe so. I believe it's going to have online multiplayer as well. The thing with Snowboard Kids that I think makes it stand out versus something like an SSX, it does have that kind of like trick based and sort of like more open style that SSX has, but it's also got the items, and
it
like
does have items. Yep.
The item box and the race mechanics and the combat items and stuff that Snowboard Kids has, and we haven't seen anything like that at all. So it's really cool that somebody's coming in here and doing this. There is a demo on Steam that I am going to check out pretty soon, and I really want to get my hands on it and like see how this plays, because if this if this is tapping into that kind of Snowboard Kids moment, it's going to be something really, really special. So those were the only ones shown during this entire showcase that I was able to confirm Switch ports for. But I also want to just shout out a couple of things that I hope come to Switch. One of them is this game Zoe, which is
Yeah, you were telling me about it.
one of the most unique looking games I've ever seen. It's this bullet hell like shooter where you play as this hand-drawn, it's describing itself as a hand-drawn bullet hell, and you play as this little hand-drawn character that is actively fighting against its creator. So the entire thing, you see like literally a hand coming and drawing and painting, and the creator is drawing like other characters that are trying to, you know, kill like the main player character. There's ink splotches going across the paper. It's a really unique. It's like this kind of Plucky Squire bullet hell kind of looking thing. It's really interesting looking, and I don't know if that's going to come to Switch, but I hope it does. It looks cool.
Nice,
So,
nice. Well, that'll be one to be on the lookout for. Weird that it's just named Zoe. I assume that's
Just-
going to be the player character,
I
but
guess ZOE is what it is. So I get it's Zoe. I guess I don't know if it's an acronym, but yeah, look that up. There's no date at all. It's probably pretty early, but wow, it looks really cool.
nice.
Another one that I wanted to shout out is this game Fortune's Run. And this was a weird one because I did go to confirm a Switch port for this, and this was another instance where the developer was like, it runs well on Switch. I got it running. I got it at 60 frames, but I don't want to confirm one way or another if this is coming to Switch yet. But Fortune's Run is this kind of retro aesthetic first person like cyberpunk bounty hunter game. And it looks really cool, and I really hope it comes to Switch. I mean, look, it's for me. I'm like, you got it running on Switch. If you got it running that well, just go the extra mile. We'll buy it, like, please. So
That's the developer saying we're not ready to announce the Switch port yet.
yeah, and who knows? Maybe it's the kind of thing we'll see at a Indie World or something like that. So we'll see. And then the last one that I'll just kind of quickly shout out is this game Gordlitz, which is it doesn't have a confirmed Switch port, but it's this cute kind of like, you know, kind of farming sim thing, but you can do like co-op with it, and it's got this cute kind of like chunky pixel aesthetic where you're playing as these little gourds, these little pixel art gourds in this very sort of cute GBA looking aesthetic town. It looks very cozy and cute. So I hope that comes to Switch too.
I do too. And this did remind me of a couple things. Unfortunately, something we said last week in regards to the Media Indie Exchange mail time, we mentioned that it was going to be releasing April 27th. Unfortunately, that's not true. It's not releasing April 27th on the Switch. It's releasing April 27th, but that's only on PC. So we apologize for saying that last week. Also, Remnant is $39.99.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm still probably going to buy it, but
It's a good game.
Is a good game. But yeah, I definitely wanted to make sure we clarified the release date
Good
for
call.
mail time. I know you and I are looking forward to that. So when there is a confirmed Switch date, we will follow up and make sure you guys know that.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was the 6-1 mini indie showcase. Definitely check it out. It's about like 45 minutes in length if you want to watch the whole thing. But it was cool. It was a well done, well put together little event, especially for this. I mean, 6-1 indie is just a few people. And I mean, this is like a kind of like young and scrappy, you know, they do the 6-1 indie cast, and they're just really good and good-hearted people behind 6-1 indie. So big shout outs to them. And this is, again, the second year in a row they've put together a whole event like this. And it's really impressive. So big shout outs to them.
Well, I mean, and it was good to have, as their OMT, a really cool looking arcade racing style game, because I mean, obviously this week there wasn't going to be a shadow drop of a trailer for another high profile arcade racing game that could possibly overshadow that. It's good that didn't happen.
Yeah. This is an interesting little story here. So Lego 2K Drive is the first in, you know, this was something that cropped up late last year, this collaboration that the Lego group is forming with 2K. and they're going to be working together on video games. 2K Studios making Lego games, and this is the first sort of instance of this. Lego 2K Drive, it was kind of leaked late last week. I guess a lot of
Yep.
like people got to play it early and stuff like this.
Yep.
But it was officially revealed this week with a trailer. It's being made by Visual Concepts, who is the studio behind the WWE and NBA 2K series. So they're making a Lego open world vehicle racing game that looks actually, I think, pretty fun.
Yeah,
So-
it's already being described as Lego Burnout essentially.
Yeah.
And I've been looking for a new Burnout game for quite some time. I know Burnout Paradise is on the Nintendo Switch, but that's not enough. It's never enough for us. We're content creators. We're never happy. Whine, 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 complain, complain, complain. But I still think it looks really, really cool. The Lego games still have a really cool track record. You and I were really impressed with Lego Skywalker Saga.
In the
that came out
minority,
last year.
apparently. I didn't know. People dunk on that game. I was like, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's too much. It's actually too
Right.
much.
It's
There's actually too much in the game. But outside of the terrible crunch stories that coming out, and we certainly don't condone any video game crunch, especially at the level that was happening at
Yeah.
Traveler's Tales games at that point. But the product itself, we really enjoyed, and
Yeah.
we're looking forward to this one. We understand it is a completely different team, completely different studio. The only thing that is the same is that Lego brand logo. But it looks really good, especially the fact that the trailer, the trailer that was shared by Nintendo, looked so good. I genuinely still don't think it was taken on a Switch.
Weird, yeah. You would think, because like the thing about that is that's like, and there's no, we both watched it through to see if there's any sort of like disclaimer, because like that, if that isn't taken on a Switch, that's actually false marketing, which would be kind of wild, but it looks too good.
It really does. That looks the trailer that Nintendo shared with the Nintendo logo on it looks actually too good to be a Nintendo Switch. If that's the way the game actually looks on the Nintendo Switch, that's phenomenal.
I mean, I hope so. Look, I would love nothing more than for the Nintendo Switch version to have that level of parity. And to be fair, Lego Skywalker Saga, as big as it was, does look and run pretty well on Switch, but it doesn't look that good.
No, it
And
doesn't look that good.
And
It may go some way to describing the biggest, wah wah moment of this entire story.
yeah, the fact that it's getting a physical release, of course, but the physical version of this game either has a required download or is entirely a download, like just a code in the box. So, unfortunately, we're not going to have the entire thing on card. So, want.
It just completely defeats the entire purpose of releasing it physically.
Yeah, it's like, why even bother if I
Like,
want to
why-
have just an empty box on my shelf,
If the file itself is just too big to fit on a Switch cart, okay, we understand how the game is played. But to release a physical version that isn't playable
Yeah.
in its physical state, and that's assuming that there is even a cart and that it's not just a code. So, but regardless, that annoys me so much when that happens.
Yeah,
It
same.
happens with happened with Life is Strange, which really stunk. It's happened with a couple other high profile games, and it just
Always
still-
unfortunate.
I still really like the trailer. I still really think the game looks cool.
Looks
And
fun.
even just the moment where where they're driving as the chicken cart about to cross the road,
Mhm.
I was like, "That's so good. That's so good." It just hails back to the first joke ever told. Why did the chicken cross
Of
the road?
course. Yeah.
But yeah, all the different vehicles that they showed off, it looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. And frankly, I'm surprised it's this far along. It's coming out very soon.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, so hang on. This is an open world game where you can, on the fly, like in midair, change to all these different Lego vehicles. It's gonna look and run this well on Switch. I will be very surprised. And yeah, to your point, this comes out May 19th, which, if you're keeping score, is the week after Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm gonna be very, very curious about this game. I think it looks really good. I hope to get a chance to play it, but everybody is going to be deep into Tears of the Kingdom at this point.
Well,
We'll
there's
see.
100 million Switches out there, and despite the fact that they're both open world, these are very different style
Of course.
games.
Yeah.
So, and if the game is as good as it needs to be, then the first week sales may possibly suffer from the release of Tears of the Kingdom the previous week. However, again, if the game is that good, it'll make those sales up.
I hope
It'll
so.
make the numbers.
I hope so. I
Lego
look at
games
this,
are not expecting to sell. I know this is 2K Studios,
right.
but I can't imagine they're expecting this game to sell like a Madden or to sell like an NBA 2K. I'd like to think they have a little bit more reserved expectation on their hand.
Well, we'll see, man. I think the game looks super fun, and I hope to play it. This realistically for me is probably going to wind up being the sort of thing where like I get it on a sale or something like that. But look, if that game comes out and if we're hearing reports that it looks and runs that good on Nintendo Switch, that'll be a story just in and of itself. Those people have found like some sort of voodoo magic that they need to give to every developer. So, yeah.
Even Nintendo's going to be coming to them like, how'd you guys do that?
How'd you do that, dude? Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be watching this, with anticipation to see what happens with this. But Eric, some news in your wheelhouse here. Fire Emblem Engage, Wave 4 of the expansion pass for that game is launching on April 4th, the day before the Mario movie. And this is the big one because this is going to be introducing brand new story content.
Yes, indeed. We've gotten several waves of DLC for Fire Emblem Engage, all of which have included new emblem rings, new character accessories that you can get. For those who have never played Fire Emblem Engage, we did a really cool review on it a little while back. But what the emblems are is they are equipable accessories that house the spirits of Fire Emblem heroes of yore that have a ton of really interesting and unique effects on the battle, specifically on the character they're equipped to, of course. And the way you marry up the characters in the game with the emblem rings and bracelets, and there's a ton of different customizability and interactivity, and the strategies are endless basically when it comes to the emblems. But they've given us, I think, 10 more with DLC up to this point. But yes, the big one, the actual new story content, is coming April 4th in Wave 4. We've gotten a couple side missions that you needed to pass to get the emblems from previous waves, but we've actually got a brand new story arc with some new characters, and I'm really excited for this. I really enjoyed my playthrough Fire Emblem Engage. It was my first Fire Emblem game for me to roll credits on, and I got the expansion pass, so I technically already own this, and this will definitely be something that I will be checking out. I will get back to all of you on whether or not it's worth it.
Nice. So this is called the Fell Xenologue expansion. It's going to have more maps, locations, and new class types, as well as 2 brand new characters, Ned and Nil. So, yeah, if you're a Fire Emblem Engage fan and you have that expansion pass, April 4th, you're going to have a huge piece of content to dig into.
Yeah, so. And this could really go one of 2 ways when it comes to RPG-style story content. Sometimes it just amounts to a couple missions and an hour, maybe 2 of content. On the other hand, sometimes we get stuff like Torna, where it's literally big enough to be its own game. So there's a part of me that's kind of hoping it's more toward the former, because the game Fire Emblem Engage already sucked like 60 hours out of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of hoping that the DLC doesn't suck another 30, but I also don't want it to just be like 2 missions and be over within an hour or 2. So again, I'll get back to you guys and see what the dealio is.
Yeah, look forward to Eric's full report from the battlegrounds of Fell Xenologue. But Eric, we had another kind of a couple actually of Sonic related announcements this past week. We got a Sonic Origins Plus, which was announced this past week. It's actually going to be releasing on the anniversary of the first game's release on June 23rd. Sonic Origins, for those who don't know, was kind of a Sonic collection that came out last year. And it was pretty
It was.
notable because it had it was Sonic 1, 2, and then Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which doesn't often get re-released. So it was notable for that reason.
Also had Sonic CD on it. You know,
Yep.
one of the big things about the collection was it added widescreen. You had a much bigger aspect ratio. It made these games feel like true modern interpretations. However, when the game released last year, there was some pretty notable issues. And I don't know to what degree those have been patched or to what degree the Sonic Origins Plus edition of the game will address those issues. But I do know that it's getting its own release, physical release, as a matter of fact, as Sonic Origins Sonic Origins Plus.
Yeah.
But if you already have Sonic Origins, you can download the Plus expansion.
Yep. Yeah, so what this is too, they have I think that the big issue people had was just like the weird kind of predatory nature of the downloadable content for the initial Sonic Origins.
It was so weird. They had different editions that each had different content. Some of them, like there wasn't an edition, there wasn't a single edition that you could buy that had all the content. Right. They had like 4 or 5 separate editions of the game that actually had to come out with a spreadsheet to show you what came in, and it was so weird. It undermined how hyped the release should have been, because a lot of these games have been re-released to death. We have probably across just the Nintendo Switch, the 3DS, and the Wii U, probably a dozen ways to play the first couple Sonic games. Yeah. But, you know, having like the Sonic Mania polish and the widescreen and everything, this should have immediately become the definitive way to play these games, but undermined by Sega's weird approach to content, which, again, with Sonic Mania Plus, looks like they're finally just consolidating everything and being like, okay, it's just one package now. We're not going to worry about it anymore. Just have fun.
Right. Yeah, and to me, this is exactly kind of what I was waiting on with this game. I figured they were going to wind up doing this, and not only that, they are adding 12 Sonic Game Gear titles, basically all of the Sonic Game Gear titles to this, and then you're also going to be able to play as Amy in Sonic 1, 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic CD, which is kind of funny. And so, as you mentioned earlier, it's going to have a physical for $39.99, which includes a 20-page art book as well as a reversible cover that looks like a Sega Genesis kind of cover, which is neat.
With the grid thing,
yeah, I like that.
I'm probably gonna get it.
I
was also waiting for something like this. They did this exact thing. Yeah, I just mentioned Sonic Mania. They did this exact thing with Sonic Mania when they released the DLC that had Mighty and Ray. They released Sonic Mania Plus with a brand new physical component, brand new physical release that had everything on cart. You know, by the way, go buy Sonic Mania. It's amazing. But I knew this was going to happen with Sonic Origins because the two releases were kind of framed in a similar light, given the very similarly styled cutscenes that were created. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance around this collection. So you and I both knew this was coming. Glad to see it's coming in June.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to grab that physical myself. And then, I mean, if you already own the game, as Eric mentioned earlier, $9.99, you can upgrade to the Plus version. And that, to me, seems really reasonable as well. So this is a good move for this game, kind of, you know, backpedaling a lot of the weird decisions and kind of like, okay, cool, fine, you can actually be excited for this now.
Yeah, and I did see a few people mention something, which admittedly I think is a fair point. And that is they are releasing the Game Gear games in this, many of which are ports of the Master System, versions of Sonic the Hedgehog, which, ironically enough, considering the widescreen proportions of the Sonic Origins, the original Sonic Origins titles, I have seen a few people think it was weird that the crunched in Game Gear versions are the games being released in this Sonic Origins Plus package instead of the, you know, slightly better quality Master System versions, considering the Master System is similarly seemingly forgotten by Sega.
Yeah, it is weird. Oh well, it's going to be a really cool collection to have. especially physically. You know, I like that they're doing this. This is a good move for me, but it's not even the only Sonic related news story
No.
of this week, as it turns out, because we got the first of three major free content updates for Sonic Frontiers. We reviewed that game when it came out last year. We actually quite liked it, despite some strange issues with it. We think it's the best Sonic game in years, aside from the best 3D Sonic game in years, certainly.
Yeah, easily the best 3D Sonic game in years.
Yeah, and it's got a huge new update now for free called the Sights, Sounds, and Speed update. And
I dig that.
it's cool, and it includes a couple of new challenge modes, a photo mode, and probably the biggest part for me, a jukebox feature, which allows you to play classic Sonic tracks while you're playing in the open world. And of course, it's got a bunch of cool fan favorite songs like Live and Learn.
Like Lil, of course. Yeah, they specifically showed the ability to play Live and Learn while you're running around the big overworld as Sonic. Yeah. I was going to say take my money, but it's a free update.
Yeah.
It's a free update. So if you have the game, download it. As a matter of fact, it's not just, hey, there's a jukebox mode in the menu now where you can play songs from. It's a new collectible within the game as well. So they've actually added it to the gameplay. You can run around and find musical notes. It might annoy some people not having all of them immediately available, and you have to find them and unlock them. I dig that. I'm an old school gamer. I much prefer the satisfaction of unlocking something, and once you get it as a reward, I'm personally able to enjoy it that much more because of it. But I don't know if there's an option to just unlock all of them, but I dig the way they're implementing it.
Yeah, maybe we can just like go fishing and buy them all or something like that. You know, that would be par for the course.
I mean, you can basically do that to circumvent most of the game anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, the way that works, there's 13 of them given to you up front, and then 40 of them are on the various Starfall Islands that you can collect, just like Eric said. And then, yeah, 2 more major free updates are planned for release later this year. Another one I'm assuming we're going to have in June because one of them's like the Sonic birthday update or something like that. So I'm assuming we're going to wind up having another one of those. And then this fall, it seems like we're going to get a big like story content with, they even say new playable characters. So I think you're going to wind up being able to play as Tails and Knuckles and Amy with that. So that'll be kind of the big, final update at the end of the year. So really cool, man.
Yeah. And there was something about a new, cyberspace challenge and battle rush.
Yep.
So they've actually added in, it's not just the collectible music notes. They have actually added in proper gameplay additions with this update as well for you to mess around with. And I do really like the way they approach the cyberspace versions. I do really hope, I'm glad that they added this jukebox mode, but man, I really, really would have hoped that you could have manipulated the music within cyberspace, because I really think the cyberspace music needed some updating. I think that was the one big thing for me when it came to those stages, was the music for me just didn't feel like classic Sonic. And if I could play Live and Learn, if I could play like the classic Green Hill Zone or something, oh my God. Oh,
yeah.
Nirvana.
Yeah. I like those songs on their own, but yeah, they don't feel like Sonic songs for sure. Well, there's a little bit of a weird story that I wanted to quickly hit here. That weird Lord of the Rings Gollum game that I feel like has been in development for like 500 years. It got a release date this week, but not for Switch. It is coming on May 25th for everything else, but it is still planned for later this year, end quote, for Nintendo Switch. So I just wanted to quickly shout that out, that the Switch is still getting that weird little Gollum stealth game at some point, and we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see.
I can't even remember. Was there even any gameplay in that new trailer?
No, I don't think so.
That's what I thought, yeah.
We have seen gameplay.
Apparently it's releasing May, but we still know next to nothing about it, aside from the fact that it's going to follow the titular goblin from The Lord of the Rings. And that does not remotely surprise me that that the Switch owners are going to be the ones kind of left out in the cold. I'm going to try not to be cynical about this game specifically, but this was not a game that I was incredibly hyped for anyway. like everything, we hope it comes out and we hope it's amazing. But I don't know. This one just does not excite me. And the fact that we didn't get a Switch date, honestly, it doesn't. I'm completely indifferent about this.
Yeah, same.
I hope.
Hey, look, they made a Gollum game without Andy Serkis. That you lost me already.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
you
fair.
lost me
I
already.
mean, Lord of the Rings is a massive franchise. There have been very good games in the franchise before Return of the King, and of course the Mordor games. And there's a ton of Lord of the Rings fans all over the world, and we're sure there's a lot of people, a lot of Switch owners who would be very happy to have a very good Lord of the Rings game on the Nintendo Switch. So I'm sure there are people excited for this, and for the sake of that, if we get any worthwhile new info, we will definitely update you guys.
Absolutely. Speaking of PSAs here, let's give a little PSA for the new NSO free game trial, because this time around it's for FIFA 23 Legacy Edition. You can indeed play this the full game for free through the 29th. But Eric, as you and I well know, we've talked about this on the show before, that game ain't even worth free. It's not worth your time.
So I'm going to literally read the eShop listing for FIFA 23, specifically the final little passage here. FIFA 23 Legacy Edition will feature the same gameplay features and modes from FIFA 22 Legacy Edition without any new development or significant enhancements. And I'm not going to bore you guys with going back in time, because the last several games in the franchise on the Nintendo Switch all say the exact same thing. Play it for free for the week, absolutely. But Seth and I have been pretty vocal about EA's just complete apathy with doing literally any work on the Nintendo Switch version of FIFA 23. I think genuinely the only difference is updated rosters.
Yeah,
I honestly think that is the only difference in this version of the game. So it's like we are not going to sit here and even remotely encourage you to buy a game that the developer has done zero work on for actual years. Just re-releasing the exact same game year after year after year at the exact same price, at a premium price. It blows my mind how EA thinks they can just get away with this. I understand the Switch is an underpowered system. You know what? I'm actually getting heated about this, so I'm going to kind of...
Yeah.
But yes, if you want to play FIFA 23 for free for a week, go ahead. But I'm not going to personally encourage you to give EA money for this atrocity.
No, me either. I'm not even going to encourage you to waste your time on it, frankly. I think FIFA 18 was the last actually new FIFA they released on Switch. They have been literally re-releasing the exact same game for full price year after year after year, and I'm sure that there are some poor souls out there that have bought it just for the roster updates. So, but not here, folks. You'll hear the truth here. Look, if you really want to play it, if you just really, have the gumption, like, you know what? No, I want to play this, then play it for free during this free game trial. Don't give them your money. Don't encourage them.
And I think it should speak to EA's treatment of this, that two guys who, we like to think that we are pretty positively tinged when it comes to the vast majority of our content. The fact that we are so incredibly negative about this, I hope speaks to EA's treatment of this situation. So
I hope so too.
Give us an actual game, maybe, aside from a cut and paste job from literally 5 years ago next time, EA. Yeah. And we might consider taking a look at it.
Oi. Well, let's hit some of these notable releases before we wrap up our news roundup. We already mentioned Sonic Frontiers Sights, Sounds, and Speed update did drop for free. That's now available in Sonic Frontiers if you have that game. I like that price. I do like that price.
That is a good price. A couple others, Remnant, which we've already talked about. The more we mentioned, the more I might wind up downloading it the second we finish this episode. A Storyteller, which again I have up on the TV behind me. That came out. Quick little note. I mentioned last week that I got some new toys that I'm aching to test out, and I believe that I've chosen my very first stream game. So take
Makes
So
sense.
be on the lookout for that. Storyteller is going to be the first game that I stream here in the very near future. So again, be on the lookout for that.
Nice. I love it. We also mentioned earlier Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key.
Yep,
Look, it's apparently pretty good. We got the points for it. I'll take them.
dude, that's Nippon Ichi, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Again, Nippon Ichi, most underrated developer out there, probably.
Yeah.
I'll keep saying it.
Yeah. And, speaking of a sports game that isn't just releasing the same game year after year, even on Nintendo Switch, MLB The Show 23 just came out for everything, but that's now a franchise that's on Nintendo Switch. So, yeah.
PlayStation Studios.
Yep. Still kind of a crazy thing.
It still blows my mind that I can officially boot up a Nintendo Switch game and see a PlayStation Studios logo. That to me is like, a cold day in,
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That was the snowball's chance that actually made it.
It sure did. And speaking of that, Have a Nice Death
Yes.
also came out. This kind of really gorgeous, like hand-drawn, bureaucratic Grim Reaper roguelike kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm really interested to check this out because we are hearing some early reports that it may be too gorgeous on the Nintendo Switch.
I have heard
so what I mean by that effectively is the Switch appears, again, early reports, unconfirmed by us, but there are people saying that the Nintendo Switch performance isn't up to par with the other versions of the game. So that's a game I'm interested to check out. If I have the opportunity to do that, I shall report back to all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to highlight, just for the sheer, Kung Fury is something that I haven't thought about in like 15 years.
Dude, I love Kung Fury so much. The single is unironic, like the David Hasselhoff single is unironically amazing. The movie itself knows exactly what it is. If any game deserved to be made, it was this. If any movie deserved a video game adaptation, it was this. If we needed a video game adaptation of anything, it was this, because of how bonkers absurd the entire I mean, this bandanaed tough guy from neon punk 1980s winds up going back in time and riding on a Tyrannosaurus Rex and eating Nazi robots. Like, it is absolutely as stupid as that sounds, but it revels in its absolute absurdity, and I need to play the game just based on that, which also got a physical announced through LRG.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Kung Fury Street Rage is the title of it, which, it knows exactly what it is, of course. Yeah. And again, this was so far. I have not thought about Kung Fury. I'm not kidding. I remember that movie came out when I worked at GameStop. I remember learning about it when I worked at GameStop. It's been a long time since I've thought.
And if you want to check it out, it's actually not that long. It's not like a 2-hour long. It's like 37 minutes long. It's actually really short, but it's definitely worth a watch, especially if you love absurdist, over-the-top stuff. And again, the David Hasselhoff song is genuinely amazing.
It's great. Yeah,
it's a workout song for me.
we also wanted to highlight this new, really they've just taken it and bundled it together, but the Voice of Cards trilogy of games now from Yoko Taro and Square Enix have now been bundled together on Switch.
So this now series of RPGs released by Square Enix, most notable for the fact that the entire game is rendered in this aesthetic of cards. Essentially, the entire game, the characters, the map, basically the monsters, it's all rendered and presented with cards. And I tried the demo for the first game and really dug it. I really dug it. It's the individual games themselves are $30. This isn't a full-size premium release. The games themselves are going to be fairly straightforward, although still, again, based on just the demo I played of the first title, a good time that I was very willing to have. And they also have DLC to render the characters on the cards in 8 bits, which of course Eric needed to buy if I ever got these games. And the fact that now all of this stuff is bundled together, They've since released 3 games. It's now a full trilogy, and the individual games are $30. There's DLC for each one. There are 2 bundles, one that has all 3 games for just $50 and one that has all 3 games along with all the DLC for $64.99, for $65.
Yeah.
And I am so close to finally pulling the trigger. If it hadn't been for this deluge of games, there's so many games that we have on the Switch, a bunch of stuff that we still need to play. But I've been just on the periphery of picking these up and playing through them properly myself, and I am so close to picking up this Voice of Cards trilogy. If you're a JRPG fan, I recommend checking it out. 3 full-size JRPGs and all the DLC for each one of them for basically the price of a single premium release. There's going to be a ton of content there, and if they release a physical of this, that'll be the quickest money that I spend in a long, long time.
I'm just holding out hope for that. I'm holding out hope for a physical. We'll see. I hope so. I want to play them. So, but yeah, that's been the notable releases, folks.
Yeah. So let us know what you guys are up to. Let us know what you're playing this weekend. Again, sorry we weren't able to be with you live, but we hope you guys have a fantastic week no matter what you're doing, especially if you're out at GDC and out at PAX. Have a great time. Be safe out there. But let us know what you guys are up to. Are you playing some 3DS and out there getting Street Pass tags? Are you playing one of the new games released this past week on the Nintendo Switch? Some of the new DLC? Are you back in Sonic Frontiers? Let us know. Reach out to us on Facebook at All In Podcast, on Twitter at All In Podcast. Join the conversation over in our amazing Discord community. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/allinpodcast, where, I mean, if you're watching the video, it's pretty obvious that we update the YouTube channel pretty frequently. So we think you should subscribe to it for all the additional content that we have coming your way so often. We produce so much stuff, a weekly podcast, videos all the time, but we also find time to produce exclusive content for our patrons.
Yes, patreon.com/allinpodcast. 3 tiers of support over there. A ton of amazing friend and supporters already over there. Join their ranks. Head on over there and look at it today. We do exclusive podcasts. You get early access to content over there. You also, for Triforce tier patrons, get exclusive discounts on our merch every month. bit.ly/allinmerch. You can get yourself a mug, a shirt, a sticker, and throw a couple of bones our way to support us and the work that we do. We really appreciate it. But hey, if you don't have any bones to throw, we understand. You can actually support us entirely for free by dropping some words on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, and Audible. You can leave us a 5-star written review that I will shout out here on the show. And on Spotify, you can leave us an anonymous 5-star rating. Help us climb the ranks, fight back all the other Nintendo podcasts, and get on become the kings of the hill in the world of independent Nintendo podcasts. We super appreciate it.
Absolutely. For everybody out there helping us do just that right now, huge thank you. Massive thank you to our patrons, to those people who have dropped words, and to everybody who has helped share our content across the internet, guys. We just want to say namaste.
Namaste. That was the news, everybody. Shout outs to everybody watching the VOD or the YouTube premiere. Thank you all so much for sticking with us. I know it wasn't live, but look, we still had a good time, and hopefully you guys did too. Make sure you like and subscribe before you head out. We really appreciate that. And hey, this is just a part of our weekly Nintendo podcast that we do every single week. On Saturdays, it drops. There are always links in the video descriptions right here on YouTube for you to check out our weekly Nintendo podcast.
And this one is very special.
It's a very special episode. Of course, the 3DS and Wii U eShops are closing. So in addition to everything you just heard, we are also dedicating the remaining segments of our show on Saturday to the 3DS and Wii U eShops. So we've got the top 5 virtual console games that you don't want to miss before those eShops close. We have a full indie showcase on affordable space adventures on the Wii U. And then we kind of close out the show with a nice long kind of memory retrospective discussion on these systems and their eShops. And it's really special, and we're really happy with it. And hopefully you guys will be too. So be on the lookout for that on Saturday.
Absolutely. I will see you guys later. I'm going to go take care of my voice now.
Yeah, good call. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.